The story begins in British Columbia, 1959. It's nighttime in the mountains, and strange echoes fill the air. We see a terrified climber desperately trying to descend from a peak, but he fails, and in panic, he leaps to his death. Authorities later report that none of the climbers who went up that mountain survived. The mission was declared a complete failure, and the place was permanently closed off. The site became known as the Forbidden Wall, and for the next 63 years, no one was allowed to climb it. Now, decades later, the story moves forward. A new group of climbers successfully scales a different mountain, celebrating their victory at the summit. Among them is a young man named Sean, whose grandfather was one of the climbers who disappeared on the Forbidden Wall all those years ago. When Sean's teammates came down from their climb, they heard shocking news. The Forbidden Wall was being reopened, but this time, only world-class climbers were invited. Since climbing was Sean's life, and he knew someone among the invited group, he decided to join the expedition. His teammates had other paths to follow, but for Sean, this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. We also learned that the authorities had their own hidden agenda. They weren't sending professionals just for sport. There was a secret buried at the summit, waiting to be uncovered. At home, Sean's father, Connor, strongly opposed the idea. He had already lost his own father, the same man who vanished on that mountain decades ago. Sean's mother also begged him not to go, but Sean's dream was bigger than their fears. He wanted to prove himself, no matter the risk. Finally, Connor gave in. He told his son, "Reaching the summit isn't the purpose of your life. Coming back alive is." Don't forget that Sean reassured him he'd be fine, then left for the expedition. On the way, Sean met a man obsessed with paragliding. He had always dreamed of flying down from the Forbidden Wall's peak with his parachute. But since access was restricted to elite climbers only, he asked Sean for help. Sean, however, explained it was beyond his control. Soon, Sean arrived at the base camp where the climbers had set up. There he met Colton, the best climber of them all and the leader of the expedition. The two already knew each other, and Colton warmly welcomed him. This was a huge opportunity, so everyone was excited. But for Sean, things were heavier. Everyone knew his grandfather's tragic story on this very mountain. Still, he was determined to be here. The Forbidden Wall lay within the land of an indigenous community who considered the mountain sacred. They had long-standing beliefs about this place, secrets that would be revealed later. Another team member we meet is Carrie, a skilled climber. She wanted to climb, but Colton asked her to stay at base camp and manage ground support. Someone responsible was needed there. However, he promised that if another team was sent up, she could join, something that encouraged her. Their technician also arrived, responsible for handling all communications. After that, Colton briefed the team about the expedition. The climb would take at least a week. 6 climbers would start moving in pairs, Colton with Jesse, Emily with Lucky, Kristen with Brad. Sean would remain as a backup, ready to step in if anything went wrong. Before the climb, the chief of the indigenous community gave a speech. He reminded the team that the mountain was sacred and warned them not to drill or damage it. They could only use natural cracks for climbing. For years, the community had fought to keep outsiders away, but pressure from the council forced them to allow a few chosen climbers. Only the expedition members were permitted. No outsiders were allowed. Later, Kristen quietly apologized to Sean about his grandfather. Sean calmly replied that it was okay. He didn't know him very well, and his grandfather wasn't the only one who had died on this mountain. The climb soon began. Their technician, nicknamed Radio, struggled to keep communications working, while Carrie managed everything from base camp. The ascent was breathtaking but extremely tough. By evening, Colton instructed the team to set up camp on the mountainside where they would spend the night. Down below, Sean wandered through the forest and unexpectedly encountered the chief. Sean was surprised that the man not only knew his name, but also details about his grandfather. The chief revealed that Sean's grandfather had once reached the summit and been given a task, a mission he ultimately failed. The chief warned that at the top of the mountain lies an ancient evil, a hidden force that longs to be set free. According to legend, it descended from the sky centuries ago and drove their ancestors to madness. Only the tribe's greatest warriors managed to trap it at the peak. Then came the shocking truth. The chief claimed that Sean's grandfather had sacrificed himself to protect the world. Sean, stunned, asked what exactly was trapped up there. The chief answered cryptically, "Something that can take control of the human mind." Sean asked the chief why they even allowed climbers on the mountain if such a danger truly existed. The chief explained that they had been forced. There are people in this world hungry for power who would do anything to reach the summit. The tribe resisted as long as they could, but eventually they had no choice. The chief told Sean that his grandfather's unfinished mission was now his responsibility, to seal the evil once again. Sean, confused, argued that he was just a climber and didn't believe in such legends, but the chief insisted, saying, "Silence is its weakness. Remember this, don't listen to the noise, or it will control you." Before leaving, the chief gave Sean his staff, telling him it would help seal the darkness at the mountain's peak. Sean remained doubtful, but also unsettled. Why would the chief make up such a story? The scene then shifted back to the climbers at camp. That night, Emily and Lucky shared their past experiences, with Lucky recalling a time he nearly died during a climb. The night passed, and by morning they resumed their ascent. But soon, something strange happened. The entire team heard a mysterious noise, followed by disturbing visions. They saw themselves and even their teammates in surreal flashes. What shocked them was that everyone had the same vision at the exact same moment. Colton dismissed it, insisting they keep moving forward. Meanwhile, at base camp, strange noises also began echoing through the radio. Suddenly, all contact with the climbers was lost, leaving Carrie anxious and frustrated. At that moment, Sean approached her and shared what the chief had told him about the mountain. But Carrie didn't believe a word of it. She urged Sean to ignore such stories and stay focused on the climb. Colton and Jesse continued their climb when suddenly Colton felt a sharp pain in his head. It faded quickly, but something was clearly wrong. Meanwhile, Brad and Kristen were also moving upward. Out of nowhere, Brad tossed away his rope. Kristen panicked as she looked closer. What she saw left her frozen in shock. Brad was crawling up the mountain like a spider, his eyes glowing with an unnatural color. From his mouth came eerie sounds mixed with a voice that Kristen recognized, her own mother's. It was as if Brad was no longer himself, completely possessed by something unnatural. Terrified, Kristen watched as Brad approached her and unhooked her rope. Just before he could push her off, he suddenly snapped out of it. But without his own rope secured, Brad plummeted straight down the mountain to his death. Shaken and trembling, Kristen quickly secured herself back with a hook. She could hardly believe what had just happened. When she reported it to Colton and the others, no one believed her story about Brad's strange behavior. They assumed it was just an accident. Communication with base camp was unstable, cutting in and out, but word of Brad's fall eventually reached them. Concerned, Carrie decided to send Sean and Justin up the mountain to help bring Kristen safely back down. Both men prepared to climb. On the way, Sean noticed the same paraglider enthusiast he had met earlier and stopped to speak with him once again. Base camp lost all contact with the climbers. Colton addressed the team, saying Brad's loss was tragic, but they had no choice except to keep moving forward. No one fully agreed, but as leader, his word stood. Meanwhile, Sean and Justin were climbing when Justin slipped and badly injured his leg. He could no longer continue. Hearing this, Carrie grew worried. She was already struggling with the broken communications, and now one of her climbers was hurt. She decided she would climb up herself to bring Justin back down, but Sean insisted this would take too much time. Kristen was still up there, and she needed help. So he told Justin to wait for Carrie and continued upward alone, without ropes, an extremely dangerous choice. He didn't tell Carrie, knowing she would never allow it. As Carrie prepared to leave camp, the chief appeared, carrying Brad's helmet. His people had already recovered Brad's body, and the helmet's camera might reveal what had really happened. She handed the footage over to Radio before heading out. Watching the video, Radio was stunned. He saw Brad's disturbing attack on Kristen exactly as she had described. What unsettled him most was the strange sound on the recording, the same sound they had heard over the radio just before Brad fell. Determined to understand it, Radio pulled out his equipment to analyze the noise more deeply. Meanwhile, Sean had already climbed much higher. With no safety rope left, every step was a risk. He unhooked his own line so Carrie could use it later, pressing forward on his own. Soon, just like the others, Sean began experiencing strange visions, as though something was playing with his mind. But then he remembered the chief's warning. Silence is its weakness. Keep your mind calm. Sean focused, quieted his thoughts, and managed to regain control, pushing through the hallucinations. As Sean climbed higher, he finally managed to contact Kristen. He assured her he'd reach her soon. Meanwhile, Carrie had reached Justin and was focused on bringing him back down safely, though she couldn't hide her worry about Sean. By evening, Sean arrived at Kristen's spot. She thanked him for his courage, and together they set up a tent to spend the night. Elsewhere, Jesse asked Colton if they should really continue after Brad's death. Colton admitted it was tragic, but insisted opportunities like this came only once in a lifetime. He was determined to reach the top, no matter what. Lucky, however, grew uneasy. He reminded Emily that in most expeditions, a fatal accident usually ends the climb. Why was Colton so desperate to push forward? Emily tried to calm him, saying this was a rare chance and they should support their leader. Back in the tent, Sean questioned Kristen about Brad. When she described everything, Sean was stunned. It matched exactly what the chief had warned him about. For the first time, he began to believe there might be truth in those stories. He shared this with Kristen, who, after what she had witnessed, found it easier to accept. Kristen insisted that if there really was danger at the summit, they needed to warn the others. With their radios down, she suggested they climb higher in the morning, hoping to restore contact. Sean agreed to think about it. Meanwhile, Carrie successfully guided Justin back to the trailer at base camp. At base camp, Radio anxiously waited for Sean and the others. When Carrie and Justin finally arrived, he showed them the footage. They were shocked to see Brad attacking Kristen, but the strangest part was still to come. Radio explained that he'd been hearing a strange loop on the radio, and when he overlapped that sound with the video's audio, they were identical. The noise wasn't random. It was repeating, like something alive inside Brad. Justin, shaken, admitted the chief's warnings might actually be true. Carrie asked who told him about this, and Justin said it was Sean. He added that Sean didn't sound like someone planning to come back, more like a man on a mission. This worried Carrie, so she ordered radio to decode the sound further. Meanwhile, high on the mountain, Lucky was jolted awake when something violently shook his tent. Emily was gone. He spotted her cutting through his ropes with a knife, her eyes vacant, her body moving unnaturally, crawling like an insect, just like Brad had. Terrified, Lucky shouted for Colton. Jesse woke up too, but before they could act, Emily suddenly snapped out of it and fell straight off the mountain to her loss. Lucky was horrified, but Colton remained cold and focused. He insisted they keep climbing, no matter the cost. Furious, Lucky said he was done. His teammates were dropping like flies, while Colton only cared about the summit. Lucky and Jesse agreed they would turn back in the morning, with or without him. That night, Sean woke from another disturbing vision. Shaken, he told Kristen, "That force is inside my head. We need to reach the others before it's too late." Back at base, radio finally decoded the frequencies. What he heard stunned him. The voice wasn't just noise, it was whispering, "I'm here. Find me." Shaken, radio admitted the chief's story might be real after all. He had never heard anything like this before. When Carrie listened, she was horrified. She urged him to find a way to reestablish contact because now, more than ever, they had to bring the climbers back. Sean finally managed to contact base. He explained that to reach the others, he'd need to climb higher. Carrie reluctantly agreed. Meanwhile, Jesse and Lucky were preparing to turn back. Colton was furious. He was so close to the summit and didn't want to give up. Just then, Sean reached him over comms, relaying Carrie's direct order for everyone to return. But Colton, obsessed with the climb, ignored it. He asked Sean to join him instead. Surprisingly, Sean agreed. Delighted, Colton pressed on with Sean by his side, while Kristen followed. Jesse and Lucky warned them to stop. It was too dangerous. Even Carrie repeated her command. But Sean shut off his radio, leaving Carrie furious. When Sean and Kristen caught up to Colton, Sean quietly unhooked Kristen's safety line, urging her to head back down. He didn't want her life at risk. Then, Sean and Colton began their final push toward the top. Back at base, Carrie was losing her temper, but radio tried to calm her. He explained that while scanning the comms, he noticed something odd. He could hear traces of every climber's voice, except Colton's. That meant Colton might already be under the influence of the same force that had claimed Brad and Emily. But to be sure, he needed all three to speak on mic again. At the summit, Sean and Colton finally reached the top. They found a skeleton of a climber, likely one of the original victims from 63 years ago. Colton, ecstatic at their achievement, turned suspicious. He asked Sean why he was really there. Was he working for the same agency that had approved this expedition, sent to uncover the truth about what happened decades earlier? Sean denied it, but when Kristen arrived, the tension grew. Soon it became clear Kristen was the one secretly working with the agency. Their attention then shifted to a strange, otherworldly stone on the peak, unlike anything else around it. Radio briefly reestablished contact and asked all three to speak into their comms. He believed he could identify which one was possessed. He was about to reveal the truth when the signal cut out again. At that exact moment, Lucky appeared. But he was no longer himself. He had taken Jesse's life on the way up and now attacked Colton. As they fought, the mysterious stone began to emit a bizarre, high-pitched frequency, filling the air with an unnatural sound. Lucky turned on Kristen, but she fought back. That's when the force shifted. It possessed Kristen instead. This revealed the truth. The entity, whether alien or advanced technology, could only control one human at a time. The moment Lucky snapped out of it, Kristen took his life, then launched a brutal attack on Sean. Down below, the chief lit a massive fire and began chanting as though calling on supernatural powers. He even sent 2 of his men up the mountain to help Sean. This part felt a little weak in the film, almost out of place, but it showed the chief's desperate attempt to intervene. Kristen, under the force's control, overpowered everyone. She strangled Colton and nearly went for Sean next. But Sean remembered the staff the chief had given him. Pulling it out, he struck the strange stone with it. Immediately, the stone sealed shut, the frequency stopped, and Kristen regained control of herself. Shaken, she apologized, realizing she had nearly ended them all. They rushed to Colton, but he was on the verge of death. With his last breath, he warned, "This isn't over. It will come back." Sean and Kristen, horrified, knew they had to escape. Earlier, Sean had borrowed a parachute from the paraglider enthusiast. Kristen was doubtful 2 people could use it, but Sean assured her it would work. The 2 leapt together, gliding safely down the mountain. Sean returned home, where his father was overjoyed to see him alive. But elsewhere, the shadowy agency received word of the mission's outcome. They were already planning their next move, possibly sending more climbers to the Forbidden Wall. In the final scene, we return to the summit. Colton, thought to be gone, suddenly opened his eyes, revealing the entity had taken him as its new host. The screen cut to black. The film leaves the power's true nature ambiguous. It was never shown clearly, but as the chief suggested, it likely came from the sky, an alien presence or alien technology. Using sound waves, it could hijack the human mind. Its ultimate goal? To break free.